Hey, this is Raise Radio, the holistic wisdom podcast for awakening women that weaves food and nutrition, traditional wisdom, spiritual expansion, so that you can feel your best, body, mind, and soul. I'm your host, Raina Lutz. Let's dig in. So I want to talk about one of the questions that was posed to me in my Facebook group, Food and Healing with Raina Lutz, which you are more than welcome to join. It's an amazing community. We have Monday accountability check-ins every week. I share a lot of recipes, stories, inspiration. It's such a great community to be a part of. We'd love to have you in there. And so one of the members of the Facebook group was asking about cheat meals. He said, please talk about cheat meals and whether that can actually keep you on track better by allowing you to take a break from time to time. So first off, I want to start out by saying that I don't love the term cheat meals. When people use the term cheat meals, it implies to me that they may be dieting. Because when we use the word cheat, it implies that we are doing something wrong. And that kind of thinking can set us up for worry and stress around food, where we have to label something a cheat so that we feel better about ourselves when we get away from the cheat, right? So that kind of thinking can, right out the gate, be problematic. So then I clarified, do you mean that taking breaks from focusing on eating well and sometimes just eating, no matter what it is, can help us to relax? And the question in here was, what I'm suggesting is that it's important for our mental health to not feel bad for missing the food goals from time to time, and that it won't derail progress provided you learn from it and regain focus. And I was like, absolutely, I agree. So it's interesting to have the concern about mental health brought up, because when I was studying holistic nutrition back in Kitsilano in 2010, oh my goodness, back in 2010, that's when I learned that we can have our interests become obsessions that become unhealthy. And my mentor also knew this, because when I got out of nutrition school and met with her, she took me for coffee and a brownie, which shocked me. So the time that you're studying nutrition, you are eating so beautifully, and it can become very harmful for us as individuals or as practitioners to get to a place where our perfectionism can come into play, where we feel like if we're not doing it a certain way, that we're a failure or that we are harming ourselves. And when we learn about food and how much it affects our body, it's really easy to always want to eat really, really well. Especially when you're learning so much, you have so much incoming information, it's exciting, you want to feel good, and you notice good changes in your body, you just want to keep going with those good changes. The dark side of this is there is actually a condition called orthorexia nervosa. And so, as you can imagine, similar to anorexia nervosa, where it is a mental issue, there is a mental issue when we are so obsessed with eating clean and eating perfect that it becomes so deeply entrenched in our minds that it becomes problematic, where we will isolate ourselves from situations where we won't have access to the food we want. We become completely obsessed with it and cut people out of our lives when they don't eat that way. So very, very harmful, and that is a mental health concern, not only for people studying nutrition, but for people who are used to that perfectionist mindset and can take things too far. It's such an interesting conversation, and it's really messy for people. It's really challenging, and I think it's even harder because we know how unhealthy processed food is. And yet there is truth in those fast foods being convenience. Just because we don't like that truth doesn't mean that it's not true. I have had clients who work full time, are busy moms, this, and this have to be done in their day. And they're like, yeah, I drove through A&W 3 times this week because I didn't feel that I had any other choice. And it's like absolutely understandable. So it's that good, better, best theory comes into play when we want to figure out what's the best I can do in this moment if I didn't prepare for this moment, right? Because ideally the best we can do is prep for it. So we already have some healthy food ready to go, or some, half healthy, half not so great ready to go. And that's one of the tricks that I'll tell people as well, so they feel like maybe they don't have to use that word cheat meal anymore, is like, even if you're eating something unhealthy, just have something healthy with it. Have a raw carrot, or have, a piece of fresh fruit with it, just so that we're balancing it out and helping out our body. Even though it's a convenience food, we're still giving our bodies some nutrients with that decision. So that convenience factor that comes into play, and the good, better, best theory comes into play. If we didn't prep, then the best thing that we can do is make that best choice in that moment. And that best choice, and I've had this conversation with people before around, is it better to just fast than to eat fast food? And it's like, again, this is a case by case conversation, because at one point in my life, I would have 100% believed that not eating was healthier for me than eating McDonald's. However, because there's always a however, if you're someone who has blood sugar issues, then skipping meals or fasting is not healthy. And that can actually be more harmful to you, right? Our mindset also comes into play here. So, for instance, if you had to make a convenience choice, maybe you're not happy about it, but this is what happened, this is just where you landed, and that's okay, then the best thing that we can do is set up our digestive system and our nervous system to digest that food, no matter what it is, no matter how bad it is for us, how many nutrients it's lacking, doesn't matter. The best thing we can do is to take a deep breath before we eat it and go, okay, phew, what a day. I can't believe that I'm eating fast food, but I am now, and I'm just going to enjoy it. It's not ideal, but I'm just going to smile as I eat it because it's tasty, and I'm going to say to my body, this is what we're getting, and this is nourishing me. And I think this is important for 2 big reasons. Number 1, when we're eating something in a relaxed state of mind, we physically, this isn't like woo-woo or spiritual or emotional, this is physically, we will get more nutrients from it, because our digestive system can work better, actually work properly, when we're restful. So that's really important, that we can, instead of scarfing it down or being angry that we're eating it or guilting ourselves for eating it, it's like, okay, I'm making this choice, getting present with it. Okay, I'm going to eat this now. I'm going to enjoy it, right? So just taking that moment to slow down with it. That's really, really helpful. The second thing that I think is really important about that is when we are taking our time with our food, no matter what it is, we are essentially enacting that placebo effect. So we know that placebo is real. That's a very well-known fact. People studying nurses, med school, it's taught that we know that placebo is real. So what if we could play with that and allow ourselves to eat that convenience food that we know logically isn't very good for us, but placebo it. This Big Mac, it's got a piece of lettuce in it. That lettuce is like super lettuce. It's so good for me. And I'm really enjoying the taste of this. Right? Just playing with it. Okay, my inner artist is coming out now. So it is really important that we allow ourselves to have flexibility in our life, in our food, because things are always evolving, right? And we're going to go through different periods of eating certain ways and certain things, and it's going to evolve and change as we evolve and change. And so I think that if we get really rigid and really solid and really fixated on eating a certain way, first of all, that stress is not ideal. It's not ideal for our overall wellness at all. But second of all, needing so hard for things to be perfect a certain way doesn't give us much flexibility for actually like living a balanced life, right? So as this question was posed to me, can cheating or cheat meals actually help keep you on track by allowing you to take a break from time to time? Yes, and I wouldn't call it a cheat meal. I would call it living. I would call it flexibility. I would call it having a fluid diet or being a flexitarian. I think that the terminology that we're using is really important. And I think that it's important that we learn when we take perfectionist mindset to anything in our life, but especially our diet, that in itself creates stress, and stress creates damage in our body. Stress is harmful for our body. Stress creates inflammation. It makes us sick. Really, really simplified, right? So I really appreciated this question being posed to me. I think it's really important to address something like orthorexia and to address cheat meals as a term that we kind of need to just push to the side and address that you're allowed to have a flexible diet. You're allowed to take breaks from being, focused on eating a certain way. And you're also allowed to say, maybe I want to just put this way of eating down for a bit and go over here and try this. See how this feels, right? It has to come down to how our body is feeling and what are our goals for eating. This is something that is like very exciting that you kind of really get to harness in a really specific way when you study nutrition. Is like when people say, "Oh, I'm doing this diet or I'm doing that." I'm like, "Why? What's your goal?" And if they're like, "Oh, well, just to lose weight," usually is the answer. Then that's something we want to focus in on. But if they're just like, I don't know, then I'm like, good. Like let's sit with that. Because posing that question in that way, what is the goal of that, sometimes is enough for people to back away from doing something that wasn't going to be good for them after all, right? Because then they're like, oh, I just, saw a quick video about it and I thought that would be maybe really good for me. Well, we really need to slow down and take time with things that we learn or see that are marketed to us and really decide if that's right for us. All the diets that are out there that are super harmful are a really good example. And I've seen a lot of the new diets being marketed in a way where, we are almost tricked into thinking that, oh, this isn't a diet, but very insidiously it is. So I think it's important to address all of these. I hope that this gave you some, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but some food for thought. And thank you so much for listening. Thanks for listening. You can find me online at www.rainadonlutz.com.